All right, folks, we're just waiting for people to trickle in and we'll start in 1 minute. Good morning. All right, all right. Good morning, Snohomish County and our neighboring counties and partners. If you're on this uh, live video, welcome. Folks, I'm Gary Clark, President CEO, Economic Alliance Snohomish County, and I am excited because it's Tuesday and that means it's coffee chats time. So those of you who have your coffee cups, raise them up in solidarity with me. We have an awesome opportunity this morning to dive into some conversation about tourism. And so this is an opportunity for us to engage on some conversation, and we have some wonderful panelists. But first things first, as always, we want to make sure that you all pay attention to the housekeeping items. So just a few. Number one, we want to make sure that you add your organization to your name. That way we understand who you're with and where you're coming from when you ask a question. And that leads us to the next housekeeping item, which is engage. We really want to hear from you as viewers and participants, business owners and community leaders. This helps our panelists to dive into some Q&A with you all, and this will be the best way we can really have a robust conversation. So with that in mind, we can get started. First and foremost, we have from Washington Hospitality Association, Anthony Antone, who is the president and CEO. And then we also have Anik Bennett, which is tied to the Seattle North Country. And this is also an opportunity for us to shine some light on her title, which is Sustainable Tourism Development Specialist. Anik, welcome. And then last but not least, we have Mr. John Lundeen. That's right, the founder of the amazing Blue Water Organic Distilling. And if you haven't participated in that space, you need to dive in. So, folks, please give our panelists a warm Coffee Chats welcome through our chat, and let's dive in. I'm going to throw it to Anthony.
Well, hey, Gary, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here again. Can everybody hear me okay? Volume is okay? All right. I got the 2 thumbs up, which is the right finger to get early in the morning. I'm gonna, if you don't know me, I think many of you do as I look at some of the names. Anthony Antone, I'm president and CEO of the Hospitality Association. We are the trade association for all things that are hospitality. So restaurants, hotels, a lot of the entertainment businesses, and when I say that, I mean bowling alley, golf courses, things that we welcome you to our business to have a great time, and go from there. So we do 4 things for the industry when we're having our best day. We do a lot of the government affairs work and bridging solutions between government and the industry. We also are the industry's primary source of information. We do a lot of work, as I see Mark Beatty on here, on helping our workforce succeed and education and training. Mark, great to see you. And then for most of our businesses, they are small operators. They don't have a lawyer or an HR director or a CFO. They're the cook and the janitor. And so they don't have time to figure out solutions or stuff. And so we do a lot of small business solution finding to help our small operators be successful. A lot to talk about, but I found these conversations are best when they're interactive. So I'm going to give a quick three or four things to feel great about and 3 or 4 things that are still challenges for the industry. And I think that's probably, I normally try to do that because I hate being the negative guy some of the times. But I think it's particularly true right now, and that there's a good story to tell right now, but we'd be foolish to call these good times because there's still a lot of challenges in front of us right now. And so I think the answer is what's going on, it's somewhere in the middle, but way better to be open than be closed. and so I'm going to start with that. What's going positive? The good news is we are open, and operators now have a chance to survive on their own terms, being forced to be then versus forced to be closed. And that is a massive relief. When you're closed and you can do nothing about it, that feeling of desperation, that feeling of I can't do anything to control my own fate, my life dreams are in the balance. That was all that pressure of the industry for the past 18 months. Now they can actually get into solution mode, and that is fantastic. The other positive is local demand is really good, meaning there's this, I don't want to call it a Mardi Gras effect, but people miss their restaurants. They miss getting out on vacation. They miss being a part of things. And so if you look at demands in the neighborhood areas and in the tourist areas that are not dependent on state-to-state travel or international travel, the demand looks really good. And what I mean when I say that is the ocean properties, peninsula properties, the in-state resorts that are all our secret hideaways in Washington we love to get to, those places are actually having really good summers. And so that's really positive. And as always, again, I tend to be an overly positive guy. I'm super excited about the future of hospitality. And my reason is the shift in generations. The generation that is retiring and starting to reduce their buying power moving forward tend to view hospitality as a luxury, particularly on the restaurant side. Hey, I already ate out once or twice this week. I feel guilty eating out a third or fourth time. That is not a belief held by millennials or Gen Z. And you look at their underlying trends, they believe that, hey, by the time I pay myself minimum wage to cook, clean, and shop, I'm money ahead by buying a great meal at a local operation. I have no guilt of eating out 4, 5, 6, 7 times this week because that is actually more efficient to my life. So I think those shifting attitudes in consumers means the future is bright. I think you see that reflected if for those who follow hospitality a lot. I don't want to bore everyone with stats because I love stats and I'll never find them boring. But generally, if you look at the STR report, which is the benchmark for lodging, you see in the outlying counties, Chelan, Grays Harbor, Walla Walla, their numbers are up quite a bit for hotel stays, and they're having a good run. But if you look in the urban areas that are really dependent on international tourism, convention business, their numbers are still down and down significantly. So that's why that story can be a mixed bag. On the challenge side, we're not healthy yet. And that doesn't take away anything from what I said on the good side, but it's balanced with that. Probably the forefront of everyone's mind is the employment crisis. At the height of the pandemic, we were down about 150,000 employees, 145,000 employees. I never thought I would say that about an industry. I was the lobbyist for Boeing during 9/11, and then trying to build the 787 up in Everett back when. And when I had to call people and say Boeing was laying off 40,000 people, I thought, well, that will be the worst thing in my lifetime I ever have to deal with. Not knowing that, I would all of a sudden be a part of an industry that lost 150,000 employees, suddenly 145,000 employees. We are still short 73,000 employees. So we are still short a lot of our team members. I can go into details about that. But what's even more concerning than the employee crisis is that there's no real plan on how to get them back, because I think the average operator thinks they're all locked in behind unemployment, and when the $300 goes away, we'll magically have employees again. That's not the case, and I'm trying to spread the word on that. We're at 5.1% unemployment today statewide, and there's only about 17,000 workers still in unemployment connected to our industry. Now, do I want those 17,000 workers back? Yes. Would that be helpful? Yes. But even if we got them all back, we're still short, just a little under 50,000 employees. So we have to be competitive. We have to figure that out. And if you're talking to a lot of local operators, some of them are just giving up on lunch shifts and moving everyone from lunch to dinner. Some people are no longer opening on Mondays and Tuesdays. Some people are they're just trying to figure it out. And that is a major problem for the industry. And in the Q&A part, Gary, when I stop talking and we open it up for Q&A, I will, if anyone wants to know more details on that, I'll be glad to cover where they went. The employment shortage is not just us, even though if you look at the statewide numbers, we're 50% of the employee shortage is in the hospitality, but it's not just us. And now it's really starting to impact our suppliers. So what we call our broadliners, the 4 companies that provide 85% of the products to hospitality, are now experiencing about a 20% trucker shortage. And so we're now seeing them cut off supplies to their smallest customers because they simply don't have the truckers to get there, and they're trying to consolidate their routes. And it's not because they're being cold, but they simply can't find truckers at $65,000 a year, full pension, union jobs. They're not out there. And they don't exist. And so everybody who has a job, unless they really want a very specific job, that this is the only job they want, everyone who just wants employment has employment right now. And now the free market is going to start competing for those back and forth. But the trucker shortage is causing a supply shortage, which makes it really hard to have your guests come in, because today my order didn't show. And my truck that was supposed to show up this morning didn't show, and now I have no product for dinner, and now I have angry guests. And that's just kind of a reality operators are trying to figure out how to manage and come up with new solutions for. The other challenge we have in front of us is what I call the race against debt. Your average full service restaurant probably left the pandemic era with around $160,000 in debt. The average profit is 4%, and on a $1.2 million, that's on a $1.2 million restaurant. Mark, you're the statistician. It's about $45,000 a year is what your average operator makes off a average full service restaurant. So in other words, we have to go 3 to 4 years without a profit to pay off the debt that's been built up during the pandemic. Demand is good, and that's good, but at some point, the debtors are going to lose their patience with us kicking that debt down the road. And some of your favorite restaurants are all of a sudden going to be gone because, like, wow, they had a great line. There was a line there all summer long and it looked fantastic. And I can't believe they closed. Well, the story behind that you won't hear is they ran out of time to pay off the debt that's been built up. That's why that backfilling, that restaurant relief fund you may hear about in Congress is so important, because that will help people at least get the debt off their books so they can start anew. And so the good news is your Congress folks have already supported that, and that's good, but we need to get the rest of the country to support it because that will help relieve a lot of the debt. The last challenge is this cloud over Delta variant, in that, are we really clear? And I think we all recognize that. No one, if they're really honest, knows where this is going or how it's going to play out. I think we're all good people trying to figure out the right thing to do, but that is a cloud out there. And we were hoping to be further along. We were hoping to not have this cloud things, and I think that's a fear. So I think that's probably the full story of the industry. I can share data and stats and charts as questions come up, but there's a lot to feel good about, and I do. But we need to be aware of the drags and the headwinds we're facing because they're real. With that, Gary, maybe Anik can go, and maybe we can just open up for questions if anybody has them.
Yeah, that works for me. We can kind of bring Anik in and go from there. There are some questions here, so would you like me to dive into a couple of those?
I am at your service.
All right, here we go. Here we go. So I think you mentioned the missing workforce, and we had Karen Thompson ask, where did they go? So just a
great question. I will drop a link to my podcast for those who are interested, because I actually spent about an hour going through the details. So if
Okay.
you're really a stats dork and you want to learn it, go there. In the meantime, I'm going to give you the elevator quick hit of where they went. It's a mix of about 14 things. And outside of that one chunk that's still on unemployment, the rest is pretty equally spread throughout. That mix includes, we lost a lot to grocery. It was probably the best year to own a grocery store since 1954. Grocery is up roughly about 7,000 employees. And if you look at the demographics of those employees, they mostly came from laid off restaurant workers or people who got attracted to grocery that normally would have gone to the restaurant side. So grocery is up about 7,000. Over time, that will rebalance, but that won't be one that will flip because some magic thing happened in the marketplace. That'll be a transition as other people get hired in the future, that'll transition back to follow the food dollar. There is a retirement boom. In our industry, we're seeing a ton of people really loving their work and not wanting to retire. And so the average retire rate started moving from 62, 63, 64, 65. Now all those folks suddenly are like, no, I don't want to come back now during COVID. I'm good. I should have retired 5 years ago. I'm happy. Thank you. Love the industry. I'm gone. It's kind of a drop that hit all at once. You combine that with the boomers are much bigger than the Gen Xers. My generation is small. They didn't want many of me around, and I don't blame them apparently. But for each boomer that retires, there's not enough Gen Xers to replace them, which if you follow generational employment things, it creates a sucking up the chain, which draws more people away from entry-level jobs, starting level jobs, other things, because there's more opportunity higher up the chart. That is playing into the factor. Daycare is playing into the factor. Loss to other states are playing into this, particularly among chefs and regional managers are the two areas we lost a lot of. The other categories, not as much. No one left for Las Vegas to be a dishwasher or a counter person. But for the other two positions, we saw a lot of people do that. And the podcast will go through the whole mix, but it is a mix of things, which is why I'm really trying, if you consult the industry or you're in a chamber that helps others, do not think in September this is going to magically get fixed. What is your long-term strategy? How are you going to compete? How are you going to recruit? These are going to be strategic answers, not societal ones.
Gotcha. Thank you, Anthony. So I'm going to start off with John here. And John, what I want to ask is, what are you seeing in terms of activity as a business owner? And then Anik and Anthony, if you want to add to that, what you're hearing from businesses as well.
We've had a pretty amazing run, actually. I have to be really grateful coming out of this incredible shutdown to enter into probably one of the best, operating periods that we've had in quite a while. And part of that comes from having just, done what a lot of businesses did, which was lean up our operations tremendously. So we're actually probably more profitable month to month. We've pivoted, we've tuned up the machine where we're not expending a lot of resources into, sort of the ancillary parts of the operation. And we're just focusing on what we do best. And so it's, I don't have anything to complain about right now. We're seeing, of course, our share of troubles with, primarily right now, some interesting things in the supply chain, because we straddle both the restaurant and the manufacturing side as a restaurant distillery. So I kind of have my pulse on a lot of different things that are, or finger on the pulse of a few different things out there. So I have nothing to complain about. It's been a wonderful reemergence from this shutdown from the pandemic. I certainly hope that it's going to continue to move forward and we don't see too much of a dramatic hit from, whatever Delta is going to subject us to. So right now we're robust and I'm happy about that.
Awesome. Anik, do you have any thoughts to add to that?
Thank you. Happy to be here this morning. Very much aligned with what John is describing, where we my role, my team at the county, we are, really working on behalf of the cities and the towns and all the businesses spread out over 2,000 square miles of destination. And we really are seeing robust return and response, with lodging and visitation overall. But we are very much also aligned with the pain that Anthony is describing. We've got so many guests in the hotels, for example. There are not enough folks to clean those rooms. So, it's a very mixed bag for folks right now. And I think that there are some, as Anthony shared, some big collisions that are on the horizon that are going to be really important to be managing and backfilling for our small businesses. But the picture here of visitation returning to our businesses is very robust right now.
Okay.
And I would agree, support Anik, and I had some local stats available. Your area, we have a star report on all different areas, but the Northwest region as a whole, if you look at February of 20 compared to February of 21, so the last pre-pandemic month before a full year of the pandemic, if you look at, let's go for the hotels, let's look at room revenue. Room revenue for your area was only down, and it's weird to say this, but compared to others, was only down 32% for the full year of pandemic impact. And I say that because you compare that to Seattle and King County and other areas, and they're talking 68%, 62%, and 60% down. So Snohomish County fared a lot better. It's weird to say, hey, I'm only down 30% revenue, and then I'm doing a lot better. But compared to how some of the other areas, that's true. And if you look at the bounce back, and so you're to look at June 21 versus June 20, room revenue is back up when you just do the month over month comparison. I got off the wrong month here as I'm looking at my charts. I mean, it's back up to be 39% up. And so we have a good story to tell in some of the areas of the state, but I always want to be sympathetic. There are others that are still going through a lot of struggles and pain. When I talk about urban versus neighborhoods, I think it's really important. So if you look on the restaurant side, for 2020, the city of Everett restaurant sales were down 18%, but the city of Mukilteo or Marysville's restaurant sales were down 1.5%. So it tells you that in areas where there's neighborhoods and more takeouts and more access and people stayed home, there's some good stories to tell within those industries, where in the urban centers, where they're more dependent on office traffic, tourism traffic, convention traffic, the pain was a lot higher.
Okay. All right. So we have some questions coming in from our audience, and so I want to make sure we get to some of these. Nicole asks, is the deterrence of immigrants playing a factor maybe as well, not just due to the pandemic, but also the political climate? So who wants to dive into that, Big Apple?
I don't know if I want to dive into it. I think I'll give the broad answer. We were experiencing an employee shortage pre-pandemic. And I think the new approach to how we treat our family that's newly immigrated had a role in that. And I think that's a truth. But I think that was pre-pandemic, and part of what was fueling the employment shortage pre-pandemic was that and the generational shifts that we were experiencing. I think what's really fueled the crisis from a problem to a crisis now is we took our existing workforce, spread it to the winds by letting everyone go, and now we're trying to recoup, and we're recouping against a smaller pool. And so that's probably the crisis, is because we let everyone go and now we're trying to start over. It was a problem before we started the pandemic. I hope that answered the question.
Okay. Anybody else want to dive in? Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I just want to chime in on the restaurant model is tricky, and I think the pandemic, we've all read probably 100 articles on how we're having to review and I think rethink what the restaurant model is. We, here at Blue Water, we've been trying to really stay on the kind of the leading edge of that and not be on our heels. I think that things are undervalued. A plate of food cooked by a kitchen team, sourced in, prepared, cooked, presented, with all the overhead that encompasses is an incredible value in America, but that's on the shoulders and the burden of the operators and the owners. So I think that, having fair wages for people helps to obviously retain them. And so I think I'm not going to dispute the labor shortage. We've felt that as well, but I feel like I've still been able to pull in the people we need because we work to pay them well and give them a great a little more dignity in their positions as much as possible. We have a 20% service fee that we introduced at the beginning of the pandemic, where I don't know how many others in Snohomish County are doing that. And it's a little controversial, but I think most people are realizing that we can take care of our people that way. We pay them a little more. We have to price things a bit higher. It's just the changing model in the industry.
Yeah, I would agree with John on a lot of that. I get occasional comments from operators that saying, "Oh my God, people are hiring my people away." Well, you have to be competitive. This is the free market, and if we're a free market industry, then we got to live when the free market lives on the employee side and be competitive and be a great place to work. And I think the model is changing. I think, please, if you're part of a community and you can keep outdoor dining going, don't let that be a pandemic only permitting situation. But I think outdoor dining, one, brings a vibrance to a community in a sense. When you're driving up the street, there's life here. And I think that's been really fun to watch. I think the partnerships and the developing concepts on third-party delivery are a permanent change of where we're looking. I don't know how that's going to play out. But to John's point, and this is going to be the topic of my podcast tomorrow, we got to change our culture in the industry to compete with new generations in a new approach. And I don't think we should be embarrassed or shy away from that. There are people who are having less of an employment crisis because their employees are willing to say, "Come work here. This is a great place. John takes care of me. This is like family here." And I think I'm hearing from HR directors and other folks, culture is now going to be a key recruiting tactic. If people are leaving you from 50 cents more an hour, are they really leaving you for 50 cents, or they were not happy to begin with and they might have stayed? And I think these are questions that my dad had restaurants growing up, and he was that old school operator that our culture is you have a job, congratulations. And I think the reality of today's world is it's got to change. And competitive cultures will be an employee advantage. And that'll be the topic of my podcast this week.
And Anik, do you have anything to add to this before I move on?
Well, I think very much so. The collaborative model has taken on kind of a new spin, just culture wide. Everyone sort of understanding the cooperative nature of our supply chains, of our our ability to be connecting across the full portfolio instead of just being able to skate across the top. I think is really an important change and legacy that will impact a lot of these jobs that we're talking about today.
Okay.
Well, and I had a meeting with some office-based renters, developers, I guess you'd call them. They own a bunch of office buildings. And they're like, how is the independent going to compete against the chains? Because the chains are taking advantage of the places that are open or have debt and looking at buying some of those things up. And that's probably a truth. But I come back to what a lot of those large companies can do is compete on culture and compete on being family. And that's where I think if you look at generational changes and their expectations and their choices of work, that is when it's going to keep our local places competitive over flat out cash situations. Because I do think there's going to be this push and this pull between the larger and the small. And I'm actually hopeful that our local operators will be able to compete in that environment well.
All right, I have a question from Randall at Southam Group, who's a great supporter of EASC. Is the trucker shortage possibly caused by the fact that they've been told over the last decade that their jobs are all going away due to auto driving trucks?
I will be honest, and the trucker shortage hit me a little bit by surprise when I got a call now 10 days ago from one of the major suppliers letting me know that they're firing 400 of their customers in Southwest Washington because they didn't have enough case orders as a way to consolidate. And then I immediately started calling the other suppliers to figure out how to help those operators, and found out this is just the first shoe to drop that I heard of. And this is coming more. I mean, I heard of people missing deliveries and other stuff, but I didn't realize the pandemic, it was systematic. So I'm unqualified right now to comment on why the trucker shortage, other than there's just a shortage of bodies out there. 5.1% unemployment is pretty low.
Mhm.
If you listen to the average economists, somewhere between 4.5 and 5% unemployment is full employment, meaning there's a natural churn in employment from people being mad at their boss, people moving, people getting married, people shifting careers. There's some natural shifting in employment right around between 4.5, 5%. So if we're at 5.1 now and dropping, that's just a lack of bodies. And how are we competitive? How do we connect to passions? And what do people want to do with their, what I call their third date? I think these are interesting questions that modern operators will have to think about.
Okay, oh, go ahead, dive in, John.
I don't think self-driving was the precursor to this shortage. I think that's a ways down the road, but I mean, we receive a lot of trucks. It was tough. I think there was a shortage brewing, before the pandemic started. In front of Everett, we have container ships now. Every week, there's a container ship just sitting out there waiting to be offloaded. We have such a hangover year to try to reintegrate our supply chains and try to get them back up and running. It's a tricky situation. We want to be ahead as far as possible on a major shipment.
All right, Nick, you want to add anything to that one?
I feel like you guys have really great insights on that particular topic.
Okay, all right. I have a question from Karen, and basically says, do you think people wanted to stay in the less expensive North End and travel to Seattle because of reduced traffic, which is sadly over, she says. Anik, you want to start there?
Yeah, well, one of the core strengths of county that we really do have going for us is the strength of our business market. And so this is kind of what we call the meat and potatoes, the weekday traveler. So we are, an emerging leisure market. We have a lot of leisure product here, but by and large, month over month, we are supplied heavily by the business traveler. And so while we did see some dips down, obviously with the reduction of business travel, we weren't hit as hard. Now, to your question about reduced rates, that has been an abiding strength of our market. People can stay here, park here. It's just easier to breathe up here. And so we do know that a lot of folks will stay here and then, venture out to Seattle, do Seattle, enjoy Seattle. So that's a core strength and a fundamental of our tourism strategy to really encourage that. So yes, you are correct. The reduced cost and the increased pleasure of staying up here is a factor.
I feel like the three of us are doing a little bit like the sportscasters in predicting the Super Bowl winner in August. There is so much we don't know. There's the people who've yet to have an injury, and there's the rookies yet to emerge. There's so many new trends that we don't even know are going to happen. I like John's description of the hangover year. We will do our best to tell you what we know now, but this is going to be an interesting year. Hell, I'm trying to put together a budget right now for my own association, and I feel like putting on a blindfold and grabbing a dart, and that'll be about as lucky as my guess.
We have no idea what's coming around the corner.
So, John, I agree, but there's going to be a dynamic play out to the question. The core of the question is people enjoyed their time from working at home, and they got a little stir crazy from not being socialized. I think those are both truths.
Yeah.
How that plays out, I don't know. So I don't think the neighborhood loss in the neighborhood areas that they gained because people were staying and grabbing lunch and eating locally and not driving to an urban area in a building and getting their lunch there is going to disappear. I don't believe that. But I don't think it's going to be, I don't think everyone's going to stay at home anymore and not drive downtown to a building. I think there's going to be a mix, a change, an adaptation. And again, I feel like I'm in August predicting the Super Bowl winner. This is going to play out over time in unique ways. And we are resetting in a lot of ways what this thing will look like moving forward. John, are you comfortable with my answer? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's, I mean, it's day by day, and
Yeah.
for us, I think the curveballs come, and you just kind of grin and bear it, just smile, just
Okay.
pivot, adapt, take it as it comes.
Nice. I like that perspective, John. Anthony, this question is directed towards you from Lee Mazina, who is also called the Warrior Princess. She's on here somewhere.
Sweet.
But anyway, she says, Anthony, expand on generational differences in eating local, but not necessarily making to support buying local and fair wages. Can you piece together that question?
Let me try to repeat the question so I answer what the intent of the question is, and I'm not trying to redirect. I just want to make sure I understand it. She wants me to kind of go over the generational approach to the changes in generations from boomers to millennials and whatever the new name for Gen Zers are. I've heard screeners,
Yes.
I've heard other stuff. I'm still, Gary, what's the preferred name? Give me a name I'll use.
No, don't put that on me.
All right. I was about to give you ultimate power there, Gary. Whatever the new name for the new generation is, I'll call it Gen Z in the moment. I've heard other people call it screeners, but I'm not sure if that's right or not. So there is a big shift in approach between generations. And it's really coming down to when I grew up and would go out to eat, we went out for a special occasion or for a reason. And the younger generations go out because they're hungry. And I know that seems almost a silly answer, but they have no issues. It doesn't even cross their radar to say, well, I already ate out 4 or 5 times this week. Where, I mean, I work for the Restaurant and Lodging Association, right? My wife's like, well, we already ate out 3 times this week. Do we have to go out again? I'm like, who do I work for? Right? Yes. But it's a conversation we have. That conversation change is going to play over time, and that's going to be a positive. And I do think it's going to, why I'm still bullish on hospitality, even though we've had a tough year. There's no way around it. I think the future is bright, and I think the dynamics of how that occurs are going to play out in a lot of different ways, John and I can't predict. But I do think there'll be more spent in our industry than there is today in the future. That being said, there is a strong, this generation is more likely to make a purchase decision based on factors other than cost and quality. And I think that's what the Warrior Princess was trying to get at. And I think that's a truth. By the way, that is such a cool nickname. And so I think those who take environmental impact seriously are going to have changes. Those who make stances to protect and involve in the community are going to have a positive impact. All that being said, I think it's an impact, not always the difference maker. I think it's be part of your brand. We're still seeing people make decisions on price and quality, and it's not solely over here. And so it's more of a factor than it's ever been, but I don't think that's the death of operators who focus on the other two. I just think there will be for some a competitive advantage over here. And I'm excited about that. I also think it'll be easier restaurant industry at the end of the day does what our customers want us to do, right?
Mhm.
If you say, hey, I don't want straws anymore, and that's the push from our customers, there'll be no straws,
I
right?
disagree with that.
So if you say, okay, John, let's good, because this is a good conversation. If you look at masks, let's take out masks. And you might as well, let's talk about religion in the Middle East while we're at it. But if you look at masks on the peninsula, culturally, their customers want masks. And so the mask requirements, the volunteers, the comfort level to do that is way higher in the peninsula than in Lewis County. So both rural Western counties, but culturally very, very different. In Lewis County, the restaurants who are trying to proactively require masks are getting big customer pushback and dealing with much different situations than the thank you they're getting in Jefferson County. And so I think ultimately customer behaviors will drive a lot of this, and that will move it. But I do think this generation will make more decisions based on things other than price and quality than prior. John, I love disagreement because these are things we don't know and we're trying to figure out. So tell me what I got wrong or what I think should think more about.
I'm of the opinion, and it's, the environmentalist in me. I'm of the opinion that any business, restaurants in particular, should be taking a more proactive approach to sustainability. And that means reducing single-use plastic, just getting rid of it. We can't wait for the consumer to say, oh, I don't want that straw. At Blue Water, when we opened 2015, we had no plastics. Everything was bioplastics, composting. We are fully committed to composting with Cedar Grove. We minimize all the single use, even the bioplastics as much as possible, because it's just a waste. It's from, my pocketbook to the trash can in such a quick moment that it's not worth it. And I think we need to work harder on that. I think we need to take a better stance on sustainable sourcing, whether it's organics, minimizing waste, and all those things. I say to people who are close to me, I say, you can judge a restaurant by its trash flow. We operate out of like 2 residential cans, which is incredible. So we have more composting and recycling than anything else that we generate. So I think the restaurant industry should be a little bolder and step up and lead in that department.
So, well, what I agree with John. I think I just used a poor example in talking about customer decisions on the way it impacts restaurants. Because I actually agree with John on all that. We supported the banning of styrofoam and other products in this past year. Our industry compared to some others, I fully agree with everything John said on the environmental. I was just trying to, my example was more trying to use how consumers will choose between things. I tried to use straws as a quick example, which was probably bad on my part. But I agree with John on environmental.
That's okay. Anik, I want to shift gears here and ask another question. This is tied to Canadian tourists. The question is, what's that impact? Have you seen it, and what's it look like for us?
Yeah, we are seeing it. I think that's where we're going to see, traditionally we are so well visited by the BC community that we really always I always like to look at Seattle Premium Outlets, and that's a real kind of an indicator species, if you will. And they are just, booming, but not quite back up to where we were in 2019. We're kind of using 2019 as sort of the gold standard because we've seen such good growth that year, about almost 5% growth in 2019. And they're reporting, things are getting better, but they are still down. And I think that we're going to see here in the county overall with our lodging occupancies, I think we're going to see that bounce back up. I mean, for example, in July, we were down about 6.8% from July 2019. And I think that's our missing Canadian traveler who wants to come back. So we're mindful and responsible, though. We're really advocating that people come to our county and really be safe and be responsible. You come back. So,
and I would agree with Anik on that. We talked about the generational changes on the dining side. I think on the lodging travel side, I think it's fascinating, and it comes down to gifts. The two generations coming in to becoming, and I mean this all in a positive way. I'm a big buyer in the new generations coming in. If you look at it in that light, rather than having a thing, they'd rather have an experience. And so I'll just look at my teenagers. They'd rather have tickets or a trip or a bike ride or an experience than an object. And I think that's a big shift from my generation. When I wanted a thing for Christmas, my son would like an experience for Christmas. And experience is what hospitality provides. And I think those changes in what people want and where they spend their dollars is really good for the future of Canadian travel, other travel, regional travel. And I think that, again, that's why, again, the future, I believe, is bright because of these changing generational dynamics.
Okay.
You know, and if I can add to that just quickly, to really make it top of mind for everyone. So the county, we have a very big data program where we really look at visitor origin, sort of, you know, some of that demographic information, and looking particularly for us here at the county at our fly routes. And the largest populations that are coming, you know, through PAE, the number one is LA. You know, our engagement is almost 1,000% up over what it was in 2019. And the bulk of these audiences that are traveling here are millennials and Gen Z. So that's LA, that's San Francisco and San Diego, and even Phoenix. So we're seeing those are the largest demographics that we are seeing. We've talked for years about experience development. And we really want people to understand these numbers so that they can say, this is legit, you know, basis for starting to develop more experiences here.
Okay.
And on an exciting note, in the next 2 months, the Washington Tourism Alliance is going to roll out a new brand to attract people here to Washington. And so you might want to have WTA on to roll out the new brand that will hopefully attract these visitors to fill up the Snohomish hotels. And bye, John.
Well, that's a great segue, Anthony. I was going to ask a follow-up question tied to what new attractions or activities or ways are you all seeing or hearing or engaging, in John's perspective, newcomers and those who are willing to travel or check out these spots. So John, if you want to start off, and then we'll go to Anik and then back to Anthony.
So the question is what we're doing to attract more people. I will probably have to admit I don't know. We're not doing a whole lot. We're having a lot of people streaming down, and you know, I'm fortunate. I placed my business on the waterfront at the Port of Everett. The port is investing tremendously. People are streaming down to the waterfront to recreate and just walk and hang out, and apartments are coming up, a new hotel. So I'm surrounded by a lot of upward movement and momentum. So I get to be pretty, you know, I get to sit on my hands and have the you know, a fuller dining room than I've almost ever had. So I'm fortunate. Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's great. I mean, in itself, that's something that's unique and it's bubbling up and supporting you. Anik, what do you have to share?
Well, I'm really excited to share that the county executive and team here at the county invested, really encouraged us to invest $10,000 in the Everett Herald Dine Out Guide. This was just a big boost of support, I hope, for our local restaurants. But on that, as an approach for Seattle North Country, we talk about the county as a destination. We have really taken a deep dive into storytelling. And so have had production crews all over the county shooting beautiful imagery to really kind of, you know, connect the visitor, make them feel welcome, make them feel like they can be familiar with this vast, big destination, and getting inside local businesses, interviewing, getting inside to talk about women-owned businesses, businesses, really trying to show that story digitally has been a huge effort all through 2020 and continues to be in 2021. We really appreciate leadership in Snohomish County for supporting a promotional budget that allows us to do that. And of course, our lodging committee, who is so supportive of that effort. So we are doing a lot of storytelling.
Awesome. Awesome. John or Anthony, actually?
If I were to encourage Snohomish County leadership on something, it's how do you package the experiences? So I keep coming back to these generations, and because that's our future, right? That's how our model is going to change. And I'm not trying to dismiss my generation that I don't matter anymore, but I'm a known factor. You know how to market to me. It's the new folks coming in that I think are important. And so how do you package experiences? And I think the pandemic has created opportunities we didn't have before. So how do the local hotels say, I mean, people want experiences. If they can get the same exact experience in 3 different cities, they're going to go to the city that gives them a different experience. So when they come in and check in the hotel, how does the person at the front desk say, oh my God, we have great restaurants on here. You got to go down to the waterfront. Here's how to have a local experience here. And how does the server at the table say, we've got an incredible local distillery. You got to take a bottle back home. Would you like to try the Blue Water organic vodka to go with the meal? And if you like the bottle, I'll sell you one and take it home. And market local products. And how do you come together so when they leave, they take Snohomish County back home with them, and you get the most of that experience. And they tell everyone, oh my God, when you come to Everett, you got to go to Lombardi's on the water, go get a bottle of the organic vodka. It's fantastic. Get out and see the rivers out front. How do they become the ambassadors and social media back that out? And how in Snohomish County do you promote each other to create that local experience? It's a little bit different model in the past. I think a lot of times people viewed each other as competitors and not cooperatives or as silos. But I think as we're selling experiences, and there's an opportunity for the operator to sell a bottle a table for vodka to go that we didn't have the ability to do earlier, which would be great for John, which will be great for the brand of the area, which would be great for the hotels to come back because they want to come back. And so we don't know quite how to do that yet. I think there's some experiencing, and Nick, I think you have a challenge in front of you to figure out how to put that together, but it's a worthwhile challenge that will help.
Well, I think, Anthony, I think that we are sort of mirroring the state. Now, this is what that really speaks to is development, right? So a series of supply chains, internal supply chains, and not just through the trucking, but through the wait staff, through the hospitality staff. And supplies being made through our visitor regions is a big focus for us right now. But listen, to get engaged, you've got to be able, and to be able to participate, you've got to be able to understand what is around you. And this is a challenge for folks to really understand. You'll walk into a hotel and they may not know, just like you said, they may not know what is happening. So to increase participation, you have to create an environment where people are aware of really who the visitors are and what is the product that's available. And so the collaborative destination model that the county has been pursuing for the past many years is targeting just those very things. So tools changing to allow two-way participation with partners in the industry, drawing people together through editorial and other types of networking roundtables just to share about what's happening can filter down. But this industry set a vision for itself for 2030 to be a destination of connection and sharing resources and circulating, circulating what we offer together equitably. And I'm really proud of that. It's quite a big lift, and it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of time. But I think it will have a lasting effect. So,
well, and I think we have this incredible opportunity in the next 12 months to test our messaging here in Washington.
Yeah.
I'm with the Hospitality Association. My kids have never been to Mount St. Helens, and they've never been river rafting up in Snohomish County. And they're like, Dad, let's go to Bend to go river rafting. I'm like, what? Why would we do that? We can go north, right? And while we're there, we can do this, right? And experience the trails. And so I think we have this cool window of time before international and state-to-state travel comes back to test our messaging out here, to test the experiences out here, to listen to the people in Washington who haven't seen all we have to offer here, learn from that, because the marketing that goes outside of that is more expensive and more complicated. So I think we really have this opportunity to try, how do we get people from Tacoma and Vancouver to visit Snohomish, and Canadians to spend some time to hit the whole county from the waterfronts to the trails. I think there's, and then experience, and because that's gonna be more expensive marketing moving forward. But I keep talking about, you don't have to leave Washington to have an incredible vacation.
Right. Well, folks, we're kind of nearing the end of our time here. And so with that in mind, knowing that you guys have given us a robust conversation with some great engagement from our audience today, I want to leave you an opportunity to talk a little bit deeper into this this deep quality of life opportunity that you all have shared with us, even during this pandemic. So John, we'll start with you with your closing remarks. We'll go to Anthony, and then Anika will wrap us up because she's the best dressed on the panel as well. So go ahead, John.
Just what we've.
Your closing remarks, whatever you'd like, takeaways for the group.
You know, there isn't a day where I'm not grateful for the opportunity to do business in the county, in this community. I've been so fortunate. I think the city's done an incredible job of really supporting small business, and that's gone into the county, efforts in the state, federal levels. I mean, we're here because of PPP. I appreciate all that support, and I love having the customers, you know, streaming in. I think we're seeing a huge shift in our customer base. I think there's a lot of youthfulness that's entered into the Everett area, and I think, you know, that's something we probably didn't talk a whole lot about, but I think there's been a big shift in our local demographics as well, and that's playing out very strongly for us. So I'm happy about that. I think we need to, as a community, we need to keep creating those experiences that we're talking about, creating recreation, creating, you know, rich, enlivened communities that people really want to live in, because that's going to strengthen all these, the hospitality and everything. I think most of our business is local, not Canadian tourists, not international a whole lot. It's local, and we need strong communities for that. So thank you.
Thank you, John. All right. Anthony, you want to take this one?
I really appreciate the opportunity. I'd love to come back. There's going to be a lot of things we don't know. They're going to play out in the next 12 months. And exactly how many people do get released off unemployment on September 1, it'll be interesting to see. Where do they go? Why haven't they come back already? This will play out. We'll find out. What happens when schools come back online and people now have a place for their family to be during the lunch hour, and the daycare situation. We don't know. We're going to see how that plays out. We don't know if the Delta variant's going to shift, change, or masks are going to come back, but we should care about our communities and figure this out together. And so I think there's a lot of things we don't know right now. So to the degree that we want updates, feel free to tap me on the shoulder and say, can you let us know as we go? And if I haven't overstayed my welcome, I'd love to come back. All
right. Awesome. And Anika, last but not least, your final remarks.
Thank you. So, you know, ironically, you know, the whole reason we do tourism is to enrich quality of life here at home. And I think what we've learned through the pandemic is, gosh, we started looking right to left. Who is our neighbor? How is our neighbor? What's happening here at home? And regardless of who or where you go, you are local somewhere, right? And you have come to really care a lot more about local. I think we have great days ahead with reawakening of people, exactly like John and Anthony said, rediscovering what's here at home. I think that's going to add to our resiliency. But I think as the workforce, the complexion of the dealing with a culture where you can feel like you're part of a company and it's enriching to you, will start to stitch together this sort of what can be have a lot of disparity between the visitor who just lands in the community versus a person who travels into a community and starts to invest and work in that community. So I'm hopeful it's going to be a long tail for us, but you know, Anthony, it would be great to continue to get these updates from you from that higher perspective. So, and John, thank you so much for all that you're doing. I know that waterfront down in Everett is quite a destination, so really love that.
Awesome.
And Anik and the local chambers that I see on the call, we're going to continue to offer all of our stuff for free to you to help as many members survive as we can. And so feel free to keep the relationship going. If there's stuff on our website, you don't have to ask me, take it, rebrand it. What we really want to see is as many small operators and people survive the next 12 months as we can. So feel free to continue to use, borrow, promote, tell me where I'm wrong so I can get better.
Thank you. Thank each of you for being willing to share today. It's been a robust conversation and really helpful information, stats, and thoughts on this perspective of tourism. Going forward, folks, we have coming up August 17th, leveraging apprenticeships to support your workforce. That's right. August 17th, 8:30 a.m. It's another Tuesday, coffee chats with Economic Alliance Snohomish County. And last but not least, drum roll, we also have the Economic Alliance Snohomish County Summer Networking. And I heard that there is going to be an amazing display there. So you might want to show up. It's going to be August 26th, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. So again, August 26th, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Summer Networking with Economic Alliance Snohomish County. All right, folks, thanks to our wonderful panelists, and thank you all for joining us. I have my coffee cup in the air. Thank you all. Have an amazing day and get out there and do some tourism. Take care.